a deal that involved two Eastern Conference teams earlier today. Kyle Kuzma went from the Washington Wizards to the Milwaukee Bucks for Kris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and I believe there's a pick swap in there as well.
Somebody got a pick swap and somebody got a second rounder, right?
Yeah, let me.
The Wizards got the Wizards got a pick swap with the Bucks, and the Bucks got a second round pick from the Wizards. I think, is that right?
So that would make sense to me because, by the way, like Milwaukee has like very, very little second round pick capital to be able to move assets around with. Frankly, it's like a real issue for them right now as they've been trying to do things. Okay. Big thing worth noting here. This is a shakeup deal, like in a big way. Before we get to like the actual players involved, an important thing to discuss here, and to me, it's arguably the most important thing of the deal, is that this pulls the Milwaukee Bucks outside or below the second apron. That is a huge factor and gives them flexibility to be able to try and move players a few different ways. Now, the other key factor here is that if you look at the difference between Kyle Kuzma and Kris Middleton's contracts moving forward, Kris Middleton next season is owed $34 million. Kyle Kuzma, because he signed that descending scale contract, is owed only $21.5 million. That might be a little bit more because I think he got like part of a trade bonus for being in this deal, not all of a trade bonus. But this pushes Milwaukee under the second apron, allows them to aggregate players in future trades, gives them real flexibility. That's a very important piece of this. Now, here's the thing. I do not think these players are commensurate with one another at all. Even with Kris Middleton being partially available this season, to where he has played 23 games so far, he actually has only missed like 3 games. Let's remove, yesterday's game or the game 2 days ago from the equation, because it kind of felt like at that point it was fait accompli that he was probably going somewhere. He has only missed 3 games since December 6th. Now, part of the issue is that if you look through like his run of games, he had a goose egg against the Clippers on January 25th. He had a goose egg against Portland on January 28th. But by and large, like Middleton's been pretty good in the minutes that he's been on the court. And by the way, like in this last little run here, these last 5 games, last 6 games, he's played 25 minutes, 19 minutes, 27 minutes, 16 minutes in that Portland game because it was just like a weird game, and then 23 minutes and 26 minutes. So like the minute load is ramping up a little bit. And when Middleton has been on the court, if you look at the actual like numbers in terms of his per 36 averages, they're basically right in line with his career numbers. Like he's shooting 51, 40, 85 right now. He's averaging 20 points per 36 minutes. Last year, he averaged 20 points per 36 minutes. The 3 years before that, he was at 22 points per 36 minutes. He's right around 7 assists per 36 minutes, which is right around what his career averages. And yes, this deal unequivocally is a repudiation of the idea that that the Bucks believe that Kris Middleton can be healthy in the playoffs at that pace of schedule. To me, that's just 100% what this says after back-to-back ankle injuries this summer, or back-to-back ankle surgeries, this summer, where, it feels like the stability, might lead to inconsistent results. I still think I would rather bet on Middleton being good than Kuzma in the playoffs. Like we've seen Kuzma be able to do it at times. Like he was a valuable piece of that Lakers run in the, what was that? That was in the year of a year of COVID, right? and the bubble and
It was the
everything.
bubble, right? Yeah.
Yep.
1920.
But I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched Kuzma this year. It's like this is a pure bet on if you get him into a more positive environment that he will play more positive basketball. And I was like a big fan of what Kuzma did last year, by the way. Like I thought Kuzma was pretty good last year. But we have not seen anything resembling positive play from Kyle Kuzma this year. He's averaging 15 points on 42, 28, 60 from the field. How he's shooting 60% from the line, I have no idea, frankly. His rebounding is down. His assist to turnover ratio has been like cut in half. Defensively, it's just been like the effort is just like not there. I mean, it truly is like Trevor Hilms says in the comments, like how similar is this to a PJ Washington situation last year? It's exactly what Milwaukee is betting on it being, is a PJ Washington situation. I don't know what to think of if that's like the reality here. Because Kuzma is about to be 30.
The funny thing is, if Kuzma doesn't apply his no trade clause that he doesn't actually have, the PJ Washington situation in Dallas never would have happened because Kuzma would have been in Dallas.
A great point, Bryce.
And so I think this is a bet on two things, Sam. One, Kyle Kuzma saying, no, I don't want to get traded to the Mavs. I'll stay with the Wizards. And then watching the Mavs go to the NBA Finals with PJ Washington playing a big role, and then coming back to Washington this year and going, man, that wasn't a good decision, and just, whatever. And then Middleton's ankles. Like, I just have to assume, and this sucks, right? Whenever you've seen somebody that's been so important to a franchise that they felt like they had to make a move like this where they're truly taking a risk. Like, this is a big bet on Kyle Kuzma figuring it out. Because you're right. Like, I was looking at the per 100 possession numbers as you were going through this. Middleton averages more points per 100 possessions than Kuzma does this year on way better efficiency. Middleton's at 51, 41, 85. Obviously more assists. Kuzma does rebound, but it's got to be a bet that Kuzma's made a wrong decision, has been regretting it since, and just wasn't able to like lock in and focus and be productive for a Wizards team that we did see him be productive for last season, where it was like, man, the one thing I will say is throughout the entirety of his career, Kuzma hasn't been a great floor spacer. He does shoot high volume of threes, but the percentage is low to mid 30s. I don't know how much that matters, but it's interesting in terms of just spacing. I think he's a guy you have to guard, but it's a bet on him, just like we said with Jimmy, obviously completely different tier of players, but being locked in because now he went from the worst team in the East to a top 5 team in the East.
Yeah. And just like, bizarrely, right? Like you look through the catch and shoot numbers for Kuzma particularly.
Yeah. What are those at?
So in 2022-23, it was 37.5% off the catch. Last season, it was 35.5% from distance off the catch, right? So I think I might have gotten that last number wrong. It was 34 in 2022-23, directly off the catch from 3. 2021-22, he hit 36% directly off the catch from 3. So like this year's been a calamity. So like, I'll read off the number just so, you guys can have it. It's 28% this year directly off the catch from 3. So it's right in line with his numbers. But if you get more in line where he's getting open shots, hopefully from Giannis, from Dame, more well-spaced floor from Brook Lopez, you can see a world where this works. The other piece of it that I think is critical, really two other pieces let's go with, is first and foremost, Kyle Kuzma, like when he wants to be, is a better defender than this version of Kris Middleton.
What Middleton has left. Yeah.
While the offensive, production has basically been similar on a permanent basis for Middleton, I do think he has been substantially worse defensively this year just because he hasn't been able to give the effort on that end. Kuzma's kind of chosen not to give the effort on that end this year. I would hope that improves as he gets to Milwaukee, gets to a team that's trying to, really, really contend for a championship. Let's get to a quick little note from PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place To get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money action. There are over 10 million members. Like I said a second ago, they invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks always puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. We are big fans of PrizePicks here. We absolutely love the app and what they're doing for the daily fantasy sports scene. Download the app today and use code GameTheory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use that code GameTheory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The second piece of it is just from a roster fit perspective, right? Kuzma does give them like a real counter to a lot of things here. He is capable of sliding down to the 4, playing with Giannis at the 5,
Sure.
and then you go like perimeter players across.
Especially with the way that's where his rebounding does come into play, right? Like he rebounds the ball well, so that helps there. Sure.
So here's my only thing about this. If we were doing this, if you're Milwaukee, you're like 7 million, I think, something like that, away from the second apron, right? Like it's in that ballpark prior to this move. I think you're like 7 million away from the second apron. Wouldn't you just like kind of rather have John Collins? And like I would imagine Utah would do, AJ Johnson and Kris Middleton for John Collins, right?
Yeah, I don't know how. I watched a Jazz game today just because I hadn't watched him in a while, and he was really good. Like Collins is having
Collins is having a great year.
And he's honestly volume completely different, but he's a better career 3-point shooter than Kuzma. He's over 45% this season. Same level of rebounder, athlete. I don't know that he has as much I don't know if you can play Collins at the 3 as much as what you can probably play Kuzma as the 3, but neither of those guys are taking the defensive matchups this team really struggles with anyway. Like none of those guys are guarding Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson anyway. So I don't know that it matters. Like you haven't solved that issue for this, for Milwaukee anyway. So yeah, it would be interesting what Utah's motivation is with John Collins, if they would do that. Cause I think if this was Collins instead of Kuzma, I probably would feel better about it just based on this season, if nothing else.
I think I would too. Like, I guess the Kuzma can play the 3 more effective. Like, I don't think he's an effective 3, like small forward, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And like John Collins can't really do that. So maybe that's why they don't want to do it. But
yeah, my gut feeling is Kuzma, Giannis, Lopez fits better than Collins, Giannis, Lopez.
Yeah,
I don't think that makes sense. Just as I say it, I don't see that working as well.
It's probably true. Okay. Next little piece here to talk about is AJ Johnson.
Yeah.
AJ Johnson is going to Washington here. He has played 45 minutes this season. I don't think that says anything positively or negatively about him, in all honesty. This was never a season where he was going to play.
Yeah, we knew this.
He is so far away from the mark physically by NBA standards right now. Like he's just too skinny and too thin to be able to play. But he is a real fluid athlete with some pop and some explosiveness, with a real scoring streak and real scoring instincts. I buy him as a shooter long term. The question for me, as it was with Milwaukee drafting him, I thought it was a terrible pick by Milwaukee.
Made no sense.
Not because I don't like the player, but because
Doc was never going to play.
that they were ever going to play him, like
Yeah.
within the next couple of years. How long can Washington afford to give him? In Washington's case, they can give him a lot of time because they're nowhere near contending. I like AJ Johnson a lot more for Washington than I do for Milwaukee, because Washington has the chance to give him a little bit more developmental time, not even at the NBA level, frankly, just years to let his body catch up and be able to physically be able to withstand the rigors of the NBA, which is something it just can't do right now. But he has a lot of talent. It's just it's a toss up as to whether or not it's going to work. Like, he needs to get so much, room needs to get so much time in the weight room, needs to get so much time developing like his passing ability. There's just a lot that he has to do. But anybody that like has seen AJ Johnson will tell you, and I saw him up close. I've talked to AJ, like I've seen him in workouts, everything. There's like real talent there. Like, I watched him and Ron Holland last year work out on like opposite sides of the gym in a workout. And like, what I would tell you is that AJ gets to his spots easier with like less footsteps and like creates separation easier than like Ron Holland. Now, Ron Holland is 215 pounds and a real defender and plays with like real energy. Ron Holland's a better player than AJ Johnson. Like, I'm not comparing the two, but I'm saying that like from a scoring, the basketball skill set, like AJ Johnson has like real gifts that you're going to be able to try to like work with as you go down the road of developing him and giving him some time. It's like a very proto Anthony Simons kind of hope if you're the Wizards, and I like taking a flyer on it for them.
I remember when I turned on the first Blitz game with him, and I was like, oh, he moves different. Like he moves different. He has a twitch, and it's not necessarily like crazy vertical pop or something like that twitch. It's just like he's able to move and slither and smooth, like all of that. But yeah, he's not ready. I think the one thing that's interesting with Washington at this point is the balancing act of all of these young guys. Can you put some veterans around them, at least in some capacity, whether it's floor spacing veterans or whatever? Because you have the guys from this last draft. You just had you essentially now have 4 first-round picks from this last draft. You're about to have another top 5 pick. You have 3 second-round picks. It would behoove them to push some of those second-round picks down the road in some capacity if they can. But I think they have to be very calculated in, okay, how do we progress all of these guys and make sure we're prioritizing all of these guys moving forward? I don't hate this. I don't hate the idea of AJ Johnson and bringing him in there because he is talented, but then you have to develop him and these other guys the right way moving forward.
Well, and speaking to the idea of like, bringing in vets and like giving them some time, Kris Middleton like might be literally the perfect vet for this circumstance. Like anybody that you talk to around the league will tell you like Kris Middleton's like just a really, really nice human being, really, really good human being. No character concerns, really hard, like worker, all that stuff. Like, but on top of that, he can't play more than like 25 minutes. So you artificially get the leadership qualities, the ability for him to hopefully instill some of what he's shown already onto the younger players. I mean, this is a guy that came up from the mud, like had to be a 2nd-round pick, got traded early in his career and developed into a guy that, I don't think he ever made an all NBA team, but probably frankly should have at one point. He was damn near a top 15 player at his peak. That might be like the perfect guy to have around a really, really, young developmental team like this one.
3-time All-Star. That was my thought for the Wizards in terms of, okay, what does that mean for the Wizards and Middleton? If he is at the point of his career where he's comfortable with that, ready for that, I'm with you. I don't think there's anybody better because he's not going to hunt shots. Like you said, he's not going to play 35 minutes. So there's plenty of minutes to go around to the rest of the roster. And he seems like, like you said, a 2nd-round pick that carved his way throughout a really, really successful NBA career. So I like it in regards to that. I think it'd be awesome if he's at the point in his career where he would be ready to be that type of veteran presence for those young guys.